Please join me in welcoming the magnificence that is Charles Holt.
I was born and raised in the South, and my grandmother and my mother had the most effect on my life. Still do. My grandmother she's transitioned, but at the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, I stayed with my grandmother. My brother is 15 years older than me. My sister's 11 years older than I am, and both of my parents worked. So I stayed with Granny. And Granny was a self-taught pianist, grew up in Nashville, was born in 1901, so she had seen so many things by the time I had come along. I think my granny I forgot how old my grandmother was when I was, coming up. I think she was like 69, 70 years old. So she was really coming into an age where she could tap into that wisdom like that. I didn't, at 3 and 4 years old, you didn't want to hear what Granny was saying, and this is thus and this and thus, and you didn't understand it. But one thing that I do remember about my grandmother is my grandmother would teach me hymns. She'd pretend like she was playing a piano on her bony knees and tap out a tune, and she had a raspy, out-of-tune voice, and I would sit there and listen to her. But I think what I got from my grandmother and my mother was this essence of life that would soon come to serve me, that allowed me to understand that if I would just step into the excellence of who I was, then that thing that we called perfect, this infinite intelligence, would do the rest. And so that's exactly what I did. I was a straight-A student, soon became a celebrated athlete, went on to college to play college football. I ran track, wanted to play professional football. That didn't work out. I started working for IBM as a marketing representative. And living the life of what others think that you should be living, there's some gratitude in that. I'm grateful because I had the opportunity to live that life that they thought that I should live. And being the third child, I was spoiled. Yes, I was. At an early age, I learned how to manipulate and get what I wanted. All I'd have to do is just flash a smile. Thank you, please. Thank you, please. Thank you. But that was one side of the track. The other side of the track was that surely everybody had my life planned for me. My grandmother thought I was going to be a preacher. She said she knew it first time she laid eyes on me and first time I opened my mouth. My mother wanted me to be this business executive. My brother and my uncles, they wanted me to be a professional athlete. You see how the pattern unfolded. And it was wonderful because at that young age, I was glad to have someone show me what I could be, tell me what I could be. But there was one person who I was waiting. I was waiting for my father to tell me what he thought I could be. I was waiting for him to say, son, I believe you could be the greatest. But it never happened. And so this life that I lived, although it seemed as if it was just flowing along really beautifully, at certain junctures, I would think to myself, but what does Daddy think about what I've done? What does he think about what I've accomplished? When I was 3 years old, I can remember my father leaving the house on the weekend and me running and grabbing his leg and, Daddy, can I go with you? Will you come out and play? Sit down and eat breakfast with me? My father was born in 1925. He'd come through all of that, being born and raised in the South, the Great Depression, that era where he was really trying to find out what a man really meant, what a father really meant. And along comes this one. Born in the early 1970s. What do I do with him? He's tugging on me. He hugs me. He kisses me. Tells me that he loves me. I don't know how to respond. But at the age of 3 and 4, I didn't know what to think or how to process that miscommunication or that communication that never happened anyway. So I thought to myself, in those young years, something must be wrong with me. I must not be enough. So all of those years where I made all of these contributions to stand in my excellence, yes, and to do the very best that I could, I was still waiting for that one voice, that one person to tell me, I'm proud of you, son. This is my boy. I was still waiting to hear the affirmation. You're going to be great. You're beautiful. But I never heard it. And by the age of 13, I had fully released him out of my life. I told my mother one day, I said, Mom, I hate him. My mother said, don't you ever say that again, son. Don't you ever say it. I said, but that's what I feel. I'd run the gamut of emotions, you know. Stored them under everything that I could, put them in the back of everything that I could, and right now they were here because there was some expectancy. Just say something. Please say something. I was getting ready to go off to college, and I told my mother, I said, I would be so glad to get out of this household. If I could just get away from him, I'll be okay. I left for college, started working for IBM. I tried everything. Went back home and wanted to share the news with him, even though by this time I thought, maybe this will get him to say something. I said, Dad, I just got a job with IBM. I'm making a lot of money. His answer or his response was, where's your territory? Where's my territory? Aren't you proud of me? I was living in Memphis at the time, and my parents were still in Nashville, and I remember driving the freeway, I-40, and I saw this sign that says, Jesus cares for you. And I slowed down, and I stared at that sign, and I say, I don't care if Jesus cares for me. I want my daddy to care about me. I finally left corporate America and moved to New York. I wanted to be on Broadway. Bright lights of Broadway. Got there, and after the first month, I landed Jesus Christ Superstar with Ted Neely and Carl Anderson, and I played Simon. I wanted to call my father and tell him, doing something different, just got Jesus Christ Superstar. But by this time, the impulse to find that courage had been beaten out of me by experience. Also in the leave of the South, I thought, wow, I'm far enough away from him where I don't have to look at him. I don't even have to talk to him anymore if I don't want to. But you know, the thing that I found out was that we can leave places physically, but those emotional strides, they follow us. And perhaps all of those emotions said, I'm packing up and I'm moving to New York with you. Right behind you. We were leaving Casper, Wyoming. We'd just done a show, and we were driving the sleeper bus all the way to Long Beach, California overnight. And I remember I took a quick nap, and I got up and I went up to the front of the bus, and I was talking to the driver. All of a sudden, looked out the window and this tumbleweed just comes sweeping past of us. I said, wow, look at that. It's a tumbleweed. Never seen one in person. I've only seen them on television. I said, yeah, you can find all kind of tumbleweeds up here. Continue talking to the bus driver, and then all of a sudden, out of my right periphery, I see this, what I thought was another tumbleweed, come up to the surface right at the window, and I turned to look at it, and it faded. So that's interesting. Started talking to the driver again, and all of a sudden I see this thing come up right periphery, and I quickly turned and I looked at it, and it was the face of my father, an apparition. And I started talking to it. I said, why are you following me? What do you want from me? A couple of hours later, we decided that we wanted to stop and get some breakfast. I was in line. There was a couple in front of me with a small child. The small child was asked, what would you like for breakfast? The small child began to talk. And instead of me hearing the voice of the small child, I heard the voice of my father. And at this point in time, I thought, something is really at me. I went into the restroom and just let out a tirade. Why are you following me? Why are you torturing me? I thought I left you in Nashville. After the tour ended, I was on my bed, the edge of my bed, and I heard a voice say, call him. Call him now. Took a deep breath, made the phone call. I never bypassed talking to my mother. My mother picked up the phone. She said, hello. I said, Mommy, I need to speak to Daddy now. She asked if anything was wrong. I said, no, ma'am. I just need to talk to him. He answered the phone. Hello? Just as dry as ever. Very seldom smiled. So I had this picture of him in my mind while we're talking over the phone, and all of a sudden, fear just grasped me. And in that fear was all of that pain, that hurt. And I started going down this laundry list of things that my father had done to me. And I said, do you remember this? Do you remember saying that to me? Do you remember making me feel like that? And in this pregnant pause, he said, no. You're talking about somebody else. I never did any of that. I became extremely angry again and went down this other laundry list. And in the midst of that tirade, I heard a voice say, tell him. Tell him. I said, Daddy, I forgive you. Silence. You know, I was expecting a response. And when I didn't get it, it made me even angrier. And I was about to just conjure up this entire paragraph, this book, this volume that I had created in my mind about my relationship with him. And I heard the voice say, tell him what you really want him to know. And I said, Daddy, I love you. I always have, and I always will. Silence. I got off the phone. I cried and I cried and I cried. But I made a commitment in that moment. I said, I'm going to tell him every time I see him, every time I talk to him, that I love him. And although I would love for him to say I love you back to me, I'm going to keep on saying it. This is 1996, the end of 1996, 97. Life unfolds. I'm in Smokey Joe's Cafe. I go to Europe, play the first Rocky in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I come back and get Lion King. I've been on television. Everybody has seen me. And everything has changed. And so has my father. In 2004, I moved from New York to Los Angeles. 2005, my mother makes a call. She says, son, we have some bad news. I said, what is it? She said, your father went to the doctor and has been diagnosed with end-stage renal disease. He has to go on dialysis. He's elected not to go on dialysis and has been told that he'll have at the most 6 months to be with us. You're the last person to talk with him. I'd said that I loved him all this time, so whatever the faults were that I had with him, they were pushed to the back. I need to talk to my daddy. He picks up the phone. I say, hey, Daddy, how are you? Fine. I said, well, they tell me that, in 6 months, if you decide not to take the treatment, then you'll be gone, and we'd love to have you stay around a little while longer, but it really is up to you. It's your life, but we do love you. My mother calls me later on that night and she says, what did you say to him? I said, I told him that we love him and that it's his option. It's his life. She said, well, he's decided to go on dialysis, thank the Lord. To help my mother with my father's affairs, I go home in 2009. I'm still telling him I love him every time I get a chance. And I walk in the door. He's sitting at the table, the kitchen table. He's just come off of his treatment, his dialysis treatment. And my mother's preparing some breakfast for him. And I walk in and this man looks up and he says, there's my baby. Oh, Daddy loves you so much. I was totally bamboozled, just so confused in that moment. There was a part of me that wanted to lash out at him and ask him, where were the words? Where were those words when I was 5 and 6 years old? Where were those words when I was telling you I loved you, how much I adored you? Where were those words when I was 13, when the world seems like it was spinning out of control and I just needed for you to tell me that I was okay, that you loved me no matter what I was going through? Where were you then? But then there was the other voice, the voice that had championed, that was ready in that present moment to take off. And it said, he's ready now. Are you? You've told him all these years how much you loved him. Now he's ready to tell you how much he loves you. Are you ready? And I said, how could I not be? And I looked at him and I said, I love you too, Daddy. It was the most awkward thing that I had ever experienced in my life. You think about something happen, you wish for years. You play it out in your mind, and it finally comes to pass, and you don't know how to act. Couldn't stop him from telling me that he loved me. Every time I rushed through a room and he was in there, you be careful. Daddy loves you too. Ooh, he has changed, but don't we all? It drove me into super deep meditation because I didn't know what was happening to me. I said, please speak to me in a way that I can understand, because these chattering words from my past seem to creep into every I love you that he gives me. And I need to understand for myself what has gone on. And I came to the conclusion that all my life I had held them to Father and Dad. But there was a third aspect to him, and it was called human. And as humans, we have history. We have pain, deep disappointment. And I just assumed that this could have been passed down. So I asked my mother, who grew up with my father in the same neighborhood, how was Daddy's relationship with Grandpa? And she said it was rough. And I asked my father, I said, Daddy, did you and Grandpa get along? He said, oh, that old man used to always tell me I had to get it on my own. He wasn't going to give me nothing. Didn't have nothing to give me, he said. I said, oh, I see. Grew up in 1925, came through all of the Great Depression, trying to find out if he was a man. Went to World War II, comes back. He describes the treatment after he got back worse than when he had gone to war. He's trying to raise a family, and then out pops this young man who tries every inch of his nerve. Because I did. I was fully self-expressed, and I wanted to know why. But you really can't give what you haven't been given. You can't say what's never been said to you. But I thought to myself, where in the world did this come from? And all I heard was, he's changed. He's getting back to who he was, his original frame. Aren't we all? He's letting go of everything that has held him down. He's pulling back all the layers. And in February 2nd, 2013, my father shuffled off the mortal coil, and I got a chance to see it come to full fruition. Was it tough? It was tough as nails watching him transition. And I used to hear my father say all the time, it's not what you get, it's what you take care of, and then it's what you give back. What are you giving back? The charge is to give everything, from all the lessons, the good, the bad, and the awful. Can you reach down there enough, son, to get them? Because I left them for you. Then the mind just goes haywire, because most of the things that my father said when I was growing up landed like a jumbo jet on my heart. But I dug deeper. I dug deeper. And I asked those stones, those rocks, I said, can you breathe into the fulfillment of this word that wants to speak to me now? I'm ready. We're all transitioning. While we are here. And the gift, the greatest gift that I've ever been given by my father were those tough lessons, the tough love. Do I still have questions? Yes, I do. Do I wish that I could have walked down the street holding hands with my daddy, swinging along? Do I wish my father had put his hand on my head and knighted me and said, boy, you're going to be good one day? Do I wish? I wish with all of my heart, but it never happened, and it never will. But what I will do is I will take what I have been given and I'll give it away. I'll speak life into it and understand that I was the one to come to break the cycle. I will say I love you. I will hug you. I will tell you that you are magnificent. I will tell you that you are brilliant, because I got a chance to tell myself. Father's Day is coming up next week, but I think it's every day that we look at our parents and go, wow. And at the end of it all, I think we come to some kind of civil agreement that we may not have ever understood all of it, all of the details, but somewhere in there, there is the greatest lesson that's ever been given. And I'm so grateful for my father's life. And my charge to you is to let those stones be unturned. Dig deep, find it. It's there. And release it all. Let it all go. And understand in the releasing, you're not just releasing them, you're releasing yourself to your greater yet to be. Thank you so much. Let us pray. Father, Mother God, Divine Spirit, infinite intelligence. Oh, we could go on and on and on. Magnificence, marvelous, sweet Spirit, glorious. How great thou art. How great this life is. Knowing that this life is the life of this divine presence that we call God. The path, the journey, that which we travel, the encounters, the experiences, the thorns, the roses, have all come to get us to wake up, to awaken to the divine beauty of who and what we are. And just to continue to release and let go while life is continuing to add to us. And as we do encounter these grand experiences, we'll take them, be grateful for them, and we'll give them away, knowing that this is an inexhaustible circulation of good. There is no place where you are not. There is no circumstance or situation in which there is not a divine idea that cannot resolve it. It can, and it will, and it wants to. Perhaps when we ask the question, the answer is inside of this beautiful world of intelligence that we live in. We have it. It's here. We want to live it. We want to be it and reveal it and demonstrate it. We can. But we've got to let go. We've got to release. And then allow this beautiful, beautiful landscape, this cascade of water rush over us. Smooth it all out. Smooth the stones out. So we can rush to the center of who we are, back to our original state, and move on. This is a word that I know. This is what I've experienced. This is what I believe in. This is life. And I want more of it. Send the beauty, send the peace. I step into this grandeur of joy. I step into the excellence, to understanding that we are one. There's no separation. And that all has come to teach us to love ourselves and to love others. We are grateful for this gift right now, this present moment. And for all of this and so much more We give thanks. And we say together, and so it is. Amen.